What if the version of you've been chasing is actually the one you've been trying to return to all along? The one before the noise, before the burnout, before you started shrinking to fit a life that never really fit you. This isn't about starting over. It's about returning. Returning to your soul, returning to your truth, the version of you that has always been meant to be. Each week, we're going to offer up real stories, hard-earned wisdom, and practical tools from powerful returns to help you reconnect with who you are and why you're here. I'm your host, Brian White, and this is The Return Project. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special series that we are putting together here. This is going to be the first episode that we get to put together on a mini-series of recovery. We are going to be talking about the crucial and powerful aspects through 4 different episodes from all walks of it. And today, to kick us off, we're starting this mini-series off with a bang. We have the pleasure of sitting down with a world-renowned recovery doctor. We have Dr. Robb Kelly sitting across from us today. He's here to share his time. He has a story that will knock your socks off. He has spoken around the world. He leads an incredible team of passionate and caring, in-depth, wildly knowledgeable recovery practice. Like, I'm telling you, when we're talking to Dr. Robb Kelly, he is going to knock your socks off. So Dr. Robb Kelly, thank you so much for joining us. It is an absolute pleasure. Everybody, Dr. Robb Kelly.
Thank you, Brian. Great to be here. Nice to see you guys. This is going to be good. I don't know why I love Brian. So here again, giving you the best podcast ever, guys.
I would love for us to start off right from the beginning. If you can share with our audience, where did it all begin and how did you end up becoming an internationally renowned recovery doctor? You know, I have the pleasure of getting to talk to you before and hear a bit of your story, so I won't spoil it for anybody, but take us from the beginning. And how did you get from point A to this incredible place where you are changing people's lives?
I took my first drink at the age of 9 on stage with my musical family. I was playing bass guitar. Nobody knew anything about alcoholism, but my family was riddled with it. And that's kind of where it started for me. Everything, I was a nervous child, but if you put a guitar around me, I was a little bit better and less nervous, but we played a big club. There was lots of people there. I freaked out. My uncle gave me a beer. So drink this, you'll be good. That was my first drink. And then obviously I drank every weekend when we was playing to get rid of the nerves and then create my own band, several bands we played in. And the drinking like Wednesdays, instead of just Friday and Saturday, it become Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday when we were playing. Going to session work, which is basically going to a recording studio on behalf of another band whose bass player couldn't play, and I would lay the track down instead of the bass player that was probably drunk or wasted. So yeah, I did that for a few years. Got into Abbey Road eventually. Was playing with Queen and John Bowie. I was doing tracks for those as well. Very, very highly paid for that. It's amazing. Got into college, not the traditional way, but I got into college, still drinking, no problems. Some of the stuff that happened would be ringing, sound bells all over the place. Hello, this is going wrong. Hello, look at this. But, alcoholics who drink and are still suffering from untreated alcoholism, we don't know we're in trouble. We don't know we can't stop drinking. Went into the police force after college, got fired after, 5-6 months of being drunk on duty. Now, I was kind of upset I got fired because it's a great job, but he called me an alcoholic. And that's what really hurt. I went on to not the shame on my mom and dad where we live. No, I didn't think about that, but he called me an alcoholic, which I wasn't, obviously, because I had a job. Went into another company, like literally bottom shelf of his company, and was selling like building towers for the Navy and the Army and stuff like that. And eventually, after a few months, I started my own company. And then we were building towers. And then all of a sudden, cell phones were created. So way before cell phones come out, the network had to be built. And that's what we did. And my company built the towers, the line of sights, the dishes and everything. We installed all them. Became wealthy by doing that. Still drinking every day now. And then I got married, had 2 children, crazy stuff in that house, drinking every day from the minute I woke up to the minute I passed out and doing some really, really bad stuff, especially to my children and my wife, colleagues. And eventually everything went, my wife left, took the children. I was made to hand everything over by my dad, who was a very quiet man. So I left everything to them. And then I was homeless. And I lived on the street for 14 months. begging and stealing and beating people up for money and robbing liquor from the store. And he just went on, died twice on the streets in Manchester, England, where my heart stopped and they brought him back to life again. He was just absolutely horrendous. Very sad looking back. But yeah, that's where alcohol took me. Only after 14 months did I finally break and realize that I couldn't stop drinking. So it took all of that. Now, my beef was with the medical fraternity and the people around me for not explaining or telling me. They didn't know. Medical fraternity still don't know about addiction and alcoholism. They think it's about the alcohol and the drugs. How stupid is that? So yeah, I decided that when I got off the streets, I would spend the rest of my life, if I got off the streets, finding out what addiction's all about, finding out about what we call the brain syndrome, which is now mental health, and decided to study and study and study, and eventually opened a practice in Manchester, very small one, and then came to America, and the rest is history.
That is powerful that you found yourself to the point where you had built some really incredible things. You'd built large companies, and yet you were doing this all while still heavily drinking.
Yeah.
And it led you down this path to, as you just said, being homeless on the streets of England and dying twice. Was there a point when you hit that rock bottom that something clicked? What was it in your brain, and what was the moment that really clicked when you hit that rock bottom that said, something's got to change?
It was a Sunday night, Monday morning, about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm walking around the factories, this area called factories and offices. That's all they were. It was called an industrial estate back home. No houses, no people at this time of night. I dropped down to it was pouring down with rain. I don't know why this day happened, but I dropped down to my hands and knees and I started to cry like a baby. Now, I wasn't crying because I'd lost my wife and my children and everything I had. I was crying because that was the first time I realized I couldn't stop drinking. I remember looking up to the sky. I was an atheist and I was broke. And I just said, if there's a God up there, I can't do this on my own anymore. And 30 seconds later, in the middle of nowhere, a guy walked around the corner called Derek. He'd missed his last bus home and he'd been walking for an hour. He took a shortcut he's never taken before and he came up on me. He took me back to his house and we chatted and I bathed for the first time in a year. I got new clothes, ate proper food. And then he said to me, you can stay here for as long as you like, Rob, but you've got to come to these AA meetings with me. Well, I hated them meetings. I didn't want to go. But he said, Rob, you've got to go. I can't have you drinking in the house. That's the deal. So I went. For the very next day, we went to I've been to hundreds, but we went to our first meeting together. During that hours long meeting, this guy shared, he said, man, John, I'm a recovered alcoholic. I remember looking at Derek and going, what did he just say? Derek said, he's recovered. You can't be recovered. What's he talking about, this guy? But he made so much sense. And he spoke about, God, and he spoke about philosophy, and he quoted the book and was on point every time. So at the end, I went over to him and I said, hey, John, my name's Rob. Would you sponsor me? And he said, no, sir. I said, but what I will be is I'll be your spiritual advisor for a period of 12 weeks, which I thought was the weirdest thing ever that I'd ever heard. But sure enough, every Wednesday, I left Derek's at 6, got there for 7, stayed till 8, left home for Derek's, got there back home at 9. That was my Wednesday ritual for 12 times, 12 weeks. Is how I did this. And he told me everything that was going to happen, including where I am today, which is absolutely incredible. The last meeting we had on the Wednesday, if I arrived 5 minutes early, he said, don't come up to the door. And at 1 minute to 8, he'd walk me to the door, even if mid-conversation, which I thought, again, was weird. I just thought he was a weird guy. But, and the last time I went there, he told me that things would change from tomorrow. Off I went, and sure enough, the next day, things changed. I got a part-time job that Derek got me. That week, it turned into a full-time job. So when I got my first pay packet, which is cash stapled to an envelope back in the day, I went to the gas station and I bought John a little teddy bear and a card. That's all I could afford. And I went to John's again and I knocked on the door and there was nobody there. I was knocking that hard. The woman on the right-hand side of the apartment came out of her door and she says, can I help you? And I said, yeah, where's John? John hasn't moved, has he? And she said, John who? I said, your neighbor, John. She said she's on shift work. She's never seen anybody, but she's only been there for 3 months. Fair enough. Went around to the other door, knocks on that door. Big guy comes to the door. What do you want? I can tell where's John's meeting. He went on to tell me that house is derelict. And if I was to walk through the front door, I would drop 2 or 3 flights down and I'd be dead. He said they used to be all yellow tape, but the kids have ripped it off. So I'm like, what is wrong with these people? Because I've been here before 12 times. So I went back to the meeting where I met John. This was a few months later. And when I walked in, the chairman recognized me. And he said, "Oh my God, Rob, good to see you." We hugged and everything. And I'm like, thank God for that. I thought I was going insane. I said, "Is John still coming?" And he said, "John, who?" I said, "John, I was over near the coffee machine talking about, going around being a spiritual advisor, not a sponsor." And he smiled and he said, "Oh my God, Rob, we thought you were praying. You were speaking to yourself. And we've never found that, man. But 90% of what I do today is based on what he told me."
That is powerful. Do you believe that you were spoken to by a divine intervention? Do you believe that there was a bit of faith and spirituality that touched into your life on that moment?
I stayed away from that thought pattern for about 2 or 3 years, and other stuff started to happen. And I would not tell this story for 10 years. But today, after about 10 years of opening my mouth and speaking about this, 100%. John was an angel. What he taught me was way beyond. He talked about neuroplasticity, but didn't use that name. He talks about human beings. We don't have a hardwired brains. We can manipulate brain patterns and neural pathways. And I was like, oh my God, this guy is like, he's in a dream world. That's what my research was on. He's like, and then many years later, the medical fraternity got all excited. In the medical journal, they printed that the brain is not hardwired and we can manipulate thought patterns and change thought patterns, and we're going to call it neuroplasticity. And it's like, oh my God, that's what John was teaching me 20, 30 years ago, whatever it was. So yeah, definitely. He spoke about things that weren't known back in the day. It really wasn't.
Let's dive into the nitty gritties here and start with you're putting yourself through school, you're studying hard. Were you drinking all this time still while in school? How did you, or I would actually, the better question that I'm really curious of, do you think that the drinking affected any of your schoolwork, or did you manage to keep that pretty par that you were doing well in school while drinking? Or do you think that if you had been clean and sober throughout that you might have done even better at school?
No, definitely not. I didn't do very well. I got into university because we knew somebody very powerful. But no, there was a lot of kids paid off to do my work for me. There was a lot of drunkenness. There was a lot of not turning up, all this stuff that was happening. I scraped through. So if I'd have been sober, Brian, I could not, I wouldn't be able to do this. I just couldn't be able to do it because I'd have been too scared. So alcohol kind of, led me through it into this, haze kind of thing.
And where that leads me is that at least my opinion is that sometimes it's not always about the academic factors of school, but do you think you took more knowledge out of living through that experience? You were able to adapt yourself and take in what they might be saying because you lived and you'd walked firsthand through the experiences and self-taught yourself a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I truly believe if you've not been through it, you can't help anybody when it comes to psych stuff, especially alcohol and drugs. Let's forget the diplomas on the wall behind me. My biggest teachers were homelessness, gone, and the fact that once you find your identity, found my identity years ago, you become a very powerful person. And I think all them together led to who I am today, because alcoholics and addicts who get clean and sober are very smart people, geniuses, in fact. And we've proven this. I'm in about 11,000 patients now, 25, 30, I don't know how long it's been. And everyone I've met and everyone I've treated over the years have turned into leaders, turned into, building businesses, getting the family back, real genius guys and girls that we work with. All of that needed to happen. Homelessness was like a semester at Harvard University. I mean, it was just, I could not do what I do today and have the effects if I hadn't been homeless, because not only was I homeless, but I lost my 2 children, ages 1 and 3. I remember stabbing my wife 3 times one night because she wouldn't let me finish drinking. I had to fly to Spain because there was a attempted murder charge out. But I come back 3 months after all charges were dropped, and she left with my kids, all that harrowing stuff that happened to me. I would live again to be where I am today.
If you can break down what your belief, and for our audience, what is alcoholism and how does it affect the brain?
So the statement before that would be alcoholics are born and drug addicts are made. So you cannot drink yourself into becoming an alcoholic. We've traced it back to imprinted genes in fetus level. So there is alcoholic gene, and it's a generational thing. It may skip 1 or 2 generations, but it's basically alcohol has 1% to do with alcoholism, and the same with other addictions. So we're born with this predisposition. We're not only allergic to the ethanol in alcohol, but 3 parts of the brain differ than any other addict. So that's why we're born, including the hypothalamus, which is very powerful. It has a diverse effect on the brain to normal people once we start drinking. And then drug addicts are just as bad, just as worse. Don't get me wrong, but that's an addictive personality. You see, one's a disease, one's an addictive personality. So 90-something% of people that come to us who are drug addicts started in the doctor's office. So that's how we've spent, I don't know, $1.5 million on research and stuff like that. So yeah, that as soon as you had a first drink with the alcoholic, all bets are off, really. I mean, there could be circumstances where you stop drinking in the early days. We've seen that, but I know and I see and I can tell alcoholics who don't drink. They're the guys running Google and Apple, because we're geniuses, So definitely born, definitely made.
If alcoholism is a disease, is there a cure for it?
No, we cure addiction of all kinds. We cure drug addiction, depression, all stuff. But alcoholism. So there's 3 parts in the brain that make it incurable, and that is the hypothalamus. So the hypothalamus is a part of the brain from birth that tells us to drink water, eat food to survive. That's one of its main purposes, survival part. If we don't do that, we will die. So the hypothalamus reminds us every single day, subconsciously, that you got to drink, you got to eat. If you don't, you're going to die. That's what he tells us all the time. At a certain point of the alcoholic's journey, once blown over to 100% alcoholism, then the hypothalamus hijacks the brain and tells the alcoholic to drink alcohol only. This is why alcoholics can go days or weeks without food or water. When the survival part of the brain is telling us to drink alcohol to survive, the kids, the wife, the job, anything, the health goes bye-bye. Because we're focusing on this to keep, even though it's to the contrary, we're focusing on alcohol to keep us alive. Then the basal ganglia is our repetition, strength, and confirms part of the brain. This is what we found during our trials and tests and research. If you can imagine a clock face with the alcoholic, 12 o'clock, we're doing fine. 10 after the hour, we relapse. 20 after the hour, we get to put into hospital. 1/2 the hour, we come out of hospital, move back in with the family. At 20 to the hour, we get that job offer. We've been waiting for ages. And at 10 to the hour, we'll relapse and start all over again. So the basal ganglia is broken. And that's purely from childhood trauma. Unless that's healed, then you will always relapse and you will never live your true life. Because that's what it's about. So, and the amygdala is kind of our trauma, lots of other things, but the trauma-based part of the brain is like all them need to be repaired to live a happy, joyous life. So there's no cure for alcoholism, but there's no cure for the common cold or food poisoning. We just make sure we take certain steps to make sure we never get there. Because alcoholism will never come to anybody on a Friday and go, hey, let's have a drink tonight. It doesn't do that. It's a week or 2 weeks before when our behavior and body changes. So the mind does nothing, it doesn't know anything, but the body and attitude changes. That's the relapse. By the time you reach out for the drink, you're never going to stop. Not real alcoholics. People used to ask me, if I give you a pint of whiskey and a gun and I put it on the bar counter, and if you drank the whiskey, you had to shoot yourself, would you take it? All day long. All day long. And people go, what? All day long. Because I'm not concentrating what's going to happen after I drink. I'm concentrating to stay alive. I need to drink that. And my focus is on the pint of whiskey, which I'll enjoy for the next 10 minutes. I'm drinking it, and then I'll pick the gun up and end it all. That's how we think. So unless you've been through it, you don't understand how we think.
Absolutely. Do you believe, or is there any science behind that the alcohol starts a bit of a chain reaction into mental health, or that it is a protagonist to other mental health diseases such as schizophrenia, bipolar, any of those? That what I have seen in a lot of mental health cases and a lot of places that have started at one point, that they all kind of escalated and were like a chain effect that opened other doors?
Yeah, that's a brilliant question. Hopefully I'll give a brilliant answer to that. We've got to look at our food. We've got to look at the pharmaceutical industry. And then we've got to look at ourselves. We've traced addiction back to food. we've trained addiction back to seed oils, sunflower oils and canola oils and stuff. And the stuff in our food in America is not good. You know, when you're going to McDonald's in England and you're buying fries that have 3 or 4 ingredients, and you're coming over here and buying fries that has 20 ingredients, you know, there's something wrong. So our food is terrible. We've linked that to addiction. We've linked kids coming home from school, parents can't be bothered, or they're out to work and the kid goes upstairs and games for 4 or 5 hours. We've treated that to drug addiction. So yeah, there's plenty of things that we are tied in, and we haven't finished yet with our research, but early signs show that that's the case. You know, I mean, what happens with our food is 90% of food you buy in the supermarket is what we call plastic food. You're not eating the real meat. You're not eating the milk. If you're buying 2% milk, it's not milk. I mean, think about it. It's not milk. It's 2%. It's not milk. So we call it that, the Lucky Charms and the Pop-Tarts that we give our kids and wonder why they can't stay still at school, and all this stuff we need to look at. So when we're eating this fake food, our body doesn't use the food that we eat. It doesn't. It has to methylate into the source that the human body can use. Well, 9 out of 10 times, cheap supermarkets and McDonald's and stuff like that, probably 80 to 90% of that food we cannot methylate. If we can't methylate a food or protein, there becomes a deficiency. That deficiency causes the heart attacks, the lung, the cancer, all that stuff. People are keeping quiet about it. And I know I'm not into politics whatsoever, but I think Robert Kennedy is heading in the right direction. We need to stand up to this, and we never will. And the pharmaceuticals are way too big. You're never going to win against them. And the food industry is always going to deny. When you're picking, we did a live show the other day on TV, and we walked into the supermarket, and I picked one of these well-known health bars, 0 fat, 9 grams of protein. He had it proudly on the front. Anybody shopping thinks that's amazing. I'm going to buy that for my family. Then we turned it around and we looked at the 29 ingredients on the back from a bar this big. And the first ingredient was canola oil. The second ingredient was sunflower oil. The third ingredient was some kind of oil. They couldn't make their mind up which oil it was. And then followed by all the GMOs and stuff like that. We've got ourselves into a spin over here, unfortunately. I'm an American, despite the accent. I became a full American 6 or 7 years ago. I take it very seriously. And I'm sick and deaf of watching people with these diseases and stuff from our food source. So the food industry gets us sick, and the pharmaceutical companies keep us sick. I ask people all the time, hey, listen, do you ever go to the doctor? He's give you a pill for your ailment. You've taken the pill that's cured your ailment, so you never have to take the pill again. Yeah, I didn't think so.
So what I'm hearing is that we have to look at everything from addiction to mental health from a far bigger spectrum, from a holistic, what our food is, what our environment is. We need to take that picture and expand it and look at all the details of what are we starting from? What are we putting in our body now? What are we allowing our environments to look like? And how have they been created? It's just such a fascinating thing to me, and makes my brain just have thousands of questions on why are we not looking at our world in a bigger picture? Why are we allowing all these things in our food? And if we are now knowing the harm that what goes into our food, our childhood behavior and childhood trauma, why are we not doing more to correct this?
Too big. That we've lost. We've lost from when the big tobacco companies knew there was a problem with cancer. The biggest tobacco company bought the biggest food company, and that's what it all changed. It's we've done this experiment, and guys, just try it at home. Go to McDonald's, buy a Happy Meal or whatever, big beef burger and fries. Stick it in your cupboard, not your fridge. Just stick it in your cupboard, man. It should go off in a couple of days, and leave it for a year. And when we opened the McDonald's after a year, nothing had changed. So there we thought, oh my God, the fries were the same. The bread had gone moldy. The meat was just the same. It was crazy. So then what we did is we put that beef burger out on the backyard on concrete, was the burger and the fries. And we left it to see it was scavenged. Not one ant, one rat, one animal went anywhere near that. And it was there after a week, still untouched. That's the shit we're eating, guys, unfortunately.
And as you're saying, that all connects right back to everything from addiction to mental health, and all of those things are spiraling from The very beginning.
100%. Now, just as Kennedy's gone in, everyone's throwing shit at him and, trying to because when you speak the truth, people don't like it and we don't like change. And the poor family like me, my dad, if there was a McDonald's, we could only eat there because that's all we could afford. And then people don't want to hear it. And to be honest with you, I don't give a shit if you need to hear it or not. I'm just telling the audience facts. And I've done this for years and years. Is like, why are we being killed and poisoned by our own food industry? Why is the government allowing this to go on when we know for a fact there's 12 breakfast cereals that are banned in every other country that England and Ireland, that are still being sold in America? Why? Because everybody is in bed. The food industry, pharmaceutical, parts of the government are all in bed together, and it's all about the money. That's all it's about, Nobody cares if you die. If you start going herbalists. We have a full-time herbalist from scratch that gets stuff for our patients, and it's just nobody likes that. There's no money to be made off well people. There's no money, man. If they can't give you a pill or stick you in a treatment center or hospital, and what good are you used to anybody? It's terrible. And then you go to eat clean, you go to health food stores and whole food stores, and it's costing you $600 for a week's worth of groceries. It's just absolutely insane.
I want to know your take while we're talking about food. It's got me down a bit of a rabbit trail here on the whole non-alcoholic beer and non-alcoholic drinks that are out there. If you're looking at someone who has walked through alcoholism or suffering from alcoholism, and we're now literally just giving them a product saying, well, it's non-alcoholic, but it's going to taste like the drink you had before. Are we doing any good with that? Or is that just really messing people up more?
If you abuse alcohol or what we call a heavy drinker, go do it. It's fine. No problem. If you're the real alcoholic, like I say, alcohol has 1% to do with alcoholism. Yeah, if you're the real alcoholic, like when you take the first drink, can you stop? Is it in your family going back 3 generations? If you're that guy that couldn't stop drinking and decided to try and get sober and drink alcoholic beer, you will relapse. And I can almost feel people screaming at the screen. And you shouldn't be telling people, oh, I'm not telling people that. I'm giving you science. I'm giving you facts. It's not about the alcohol. It's not about the drugs, sex, food, porn. It's nothing. Well, 1%. It's hardly anything to do with it. So it's a ritual and a pattern around. It's like smoking. Most people stop smoking if they realize what it was, and that there's a strong pattern around that. But nobody tells. Marijuana is legal in many states. I'm okay with that. But please tell the freaking customers what it actually does to you. Nobody does. Nobody wants us to get well. It's crazy. But yeah, there's little things you have to look out for and realize that, hey, nobody's coming for me. I'm on my own. What do I need to look at with the non-alcoholic stuff I'm drinking or the food that I'm eating, and just be sensible. If you're doing the same routine around non-alcoholic beer and you're a true alcoholic, you'll relapse. It's not about the alcohol, and I'll keep saying this, but you have to understand this, guys. It isn't. And like I say, there's a fine line between that and drinking heavily or abusing alcohol. If you abuse alcohol and you go on it, brilliant. It works for you. It's like any drugs that they try and give us, to try and stop drinking. If you're an alcoholic, it doesn't work. Anti-abuse, it does. Now, if you're a heavy drinker, brilliant. Stay on it. You'll never drink. Awesome. Alcoholics are made. You're never going to cure a drug addiction with a drug. You're never going to cure alcoholism with a drug. It doesn't work that way. Like, depends on what side the barrier you're on. If you're like a drug addict who's, again, addicted personality, you've got more chance of stopping, taking something else, but then it creates another problem. Brian, is like heroin. So you go to the doctor and he says, okay, I want to put you on Suboxone and bring you off heroin. And you go, oh, brilliant. Thank God for that, doctor. Thank you. You're amazing. And then what happens is you stay on Suboxone for a year. Suboxone is a taper. If you're still on Suboxone after 6 weeks, do you think the brain knows the difference between street drugs and pharmaceutical drugs?
Not at all.
If you're still taking Suboxone a year in, guess what? You're still a drug addict.
Yeah. I know that in many different parts of the world, many different parts of the country, that the systems are all very different. Yet here in Alberta, there is a philosophy that they have around what they're calling forced recovery. And I'd like to pick your brain on this. Do you think that forcing somebody into recovery, if you got, say, hypothetically, they get arrested, their option is either you go sit and rot in jail or you get forced to a recovery center. What is your take on this philosophy around forced recovery? Is it helpful, or are we hurting people more?
I think there should be a test or a trial before we send them to treatment. Everybody deserves treatment. Everybody needs the chance to treatment. But if you second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth time of being his choice. So the individual, whether it be cake, food, sex, porn, drugs, alcohol, needs to be ready to change and needs to be ready to open-minded. So 300 neural pathways die every day in the brain. What are we replacing them with? It's the same old crap that we've been taught or the behavior. So it's kind of a yes or no. And I know two people that are kind of in my outer circle. So the friends kind of that were forced into treatment and they've been sober for years and years. And one's a nurse, one's a PhD doctor. So it's hard. I think each individual there needs to be a test done that I would love to do, that you have to pass the test, written test, before you're allowed to go to treatment, because it's shown right now. And I've only glanced at figures, and this is something I'm not an expert on, guys, so please don't quote me. Something like 70% of people forced into treatment actually get clean and sober in that time period. Now, they may relapse after that, whereas prison, normally we know that the turnaround is, if you're in prison for, something between 3 and 5 years, unless something drastically changes, you're going to be a regular visitor to that prison or prisons like that, because the behavior hasn't changed or the mindset.
You walk through it yourself, but I want to know, do you think that the 12 steps through the AA program is a powerful set, or is that just a cover-up Band-Aid?
I don't know where you're getting these questions from, Brian, but there's some of the best questions I've ever been asked. Oh my God. Okay, so I got sober in AA. I spoke on behalf of AA for many years, traveled the world, and I will say this. The meetings, AA meetings, are fellowships. They are not AA. AA is the book. Alcoholism is the book. Now, the book itself is absolutely phenomenal. I studied Carl Jung in college, and the book is the best piece of literature I've ever read. The first 164 pertaining, because it mentions recovered 27 times. And recovered means to gain one's health and state of mind. So the book, if you do everything it tells you to do and people don't, they still think in AA that step 1 says we're all powerless. Doesn't say that. It says we admitted we were powerless. So there's a lot of words in there we don't understand. Success rate of people going into AA, not reading the book or not having somebody to take them through that is about 3%. People who go to the right meeting at the right time that introduced to the book, it's about 90%. Now, again, we've got lazy. Alcoholics Anonymous used to be 98, 99% when it first came out, especially around Akron. And what happened is this. So how do we go from 98 to 3%? This is how. So when the Betty Ford Clinic was first started, they used to send people to AA, not alcoholics. And then they'd say drunks to AA. So what happened to AA with all these people coming in without knowing what it's about is AA buckled. When we're allowing other people to come in and tell about their feelings and how their dog last night was drinking beer off the floor. So do we think as a group, is my dog an alcoholic? And then we failed, we failed. And today, for me, the meetings, I don't go anymore. Meetings I used to go to were terrible. You kill people. But if you find that one true big book meeting that comes straight out of the book and looks at the words, then yeah, man, it's good. So it's a shame that meetings will never keep you sober, guys. It's really important that I'm going to 90 meetings a week. Good for you, man. But it ain't going to keep you sober. You might meet people, have a laugh, drink coffee. That's awesome. But if you're a real alcoholic, you'll relapse again without doing any work. If you don't do your childhood trauma work, step 4, and the amends, step 8 and 9, if you don't do all them and read exactly what's in the book, the 132 promises in the first 164, just people think they're only 9. So just be sensible. Just do a bit of research. And yeah, it's kind of a yes or no, unfortunately.
You're talking about doing the work here. So you've developed this internationally renowned, very, very successful practice. What is one of the first steps when someone walks in your door? What's the first step that you make them go through to put the work in?
Brian, I love you. This is fucking awesome questions. Okay, you're a great podcaster, man. Yeah, they have to pass an assessment before we take them. So there's 2 things that needs to happen. They need to pass our assessment, which is pretty mean, and we kind of get them to agree to take alcohol and drugs before we start on Monday. So all the assessments are done on Friday. Let's have a weekend, just, drink a little bit. And if they say, yeah, gone, finished. And the second one is the spouse and anybody over the age of 18 that's living in the house has to come on board. So the alcoholic comes on board for 7 days a week for a 90-day period when all chemicals are reset. And the wife needs to come on for 2 days to do her work. Everyone thinks, that, the wives, even the wives, the first thing they say, well, it's not my problem, it's his problem. Really? So you don't suffer from alcoholism? No. Okay. Why do you allow him to come home 2 or 3 times a week drunk and beat you up in front of your 6-year-old kid? And then the tears start. She needs to do her trauma work, nothing to do with her husband. She don't get to talk about her husband, and the man doesn't get to talk about his wife. This is individual trauma work and recovery work on a journey that we're going with a guaranteed 100% success rate. Guaranteed that I will give you your money back if you relapse while still following our program when you leave us.
I got to interject here real quick because this is probably the greatest thing I've ever heard. You are now telling us, and you're telling everybody out there, that whether it's drugs, alcohol, it's not just about them. You are telling us that if you're in a relationship, if you have family, it is not just about your problem. We're digging into why the spouse has allowed it. We're digging into having the community around you do the work as well.
But when we did our family systems journey at the beginning, probably 10 years ago, 11 years ago, what we found was this. When a spouse takes part with our program, takes part 2 times a week, that the success rate of the alcoholic goes up by 42%. Done. 42%. We're already on our way because if you can imagine 2 houses, okay, guys, you got 2. Recovery has its own language. We teach people NLP a different language around being safe and being happy and free and no trauma. So this is what traditional treatment is. They pick the alcoholic out of this house. Let's say this house speaks English, okay? We pick them up at the house. You stick them in a treatment center. Recovery has its own language. So let's say we teach them German. We teach the language German. And after a period of time, we pick him back up and we put back in the English speaking house. Guess what? He's going to start speaking English again. And that's the only thing I can tell you till people go, oh my God, yes, the whole family, it's a family disease and it's a family recovery. Without the family, I mean, if you don't have them, obviously you come in yourself. Without the family and not so much friends, but the family around you, knowing how to speak the language, what to expect, how they have boundaries, how their trauma is PTSD because of their husband's behavior. So the house becomes sick. If you don't treat the house, then the success rates we will not touch. So if the husband comes on and go, I'm game. There's a big checkpoint. I want to come on, but my wife won't come on. We won't take you. We're just going to waste your money and we don't do that.
I think that's the greatest piece of recovery information that many people out there are going to hear. And I love your concept that it is not just about the person, because I've seen this time and time again where you just put it so perfectly. You've taken the English speaking house, you pulled the guy out, you taught him German. He's done very well learning German. You threw him back into the English speaking house and he forgot German in 5 seconds. Whereas everybody in that house all learned German, all learned to speak it fluently. Now they've come together. And then what I love about it is that once that house learns to speak German, they can slowly take those things they've learned in German and start to teach other people bits of German. And it becomes kind of a ripple effect. We're not just helping one family. We're sending a ripple out to help the communities around them.
Yeah, we believe that like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people can affect one person, but one person can't change 6, 7, 8, 9 people. So show me your friends or show your future, starting with your family. So how do we know this? Well, we did our own experiments on everything I talk about. We researched, we trialed, and we found this. We wanted to find out, could 9 people have such an effect on one person in such a short time? And we thought we could happen. We got 9 actors into our rating room. And the idea was they pretended they were patients. They get $100 each. They'd come in and these were the rules. When the buzzer goes, in the waiting room, you stand up for like 5 seconds and you all sit down together at the same time. The buzzer will go every 20, 30, 40 seconds, whatever it is. You do the same thing. And then what we're going to do is going to be one person that's going to be a patient, guys. Okay. We're going to call you in one by one, pretending you are patients waiting to come in. We called the patient up. We said, hey, we've got a free this. We've got a free that. Can you come in and join us? And she was like, oh, of course, that's brilliant, brilliant. So she walked in and the stage was set. So there's 9 actors in there just reading papers, doing phones. She walks in, she says that. And first buzzer went. All the 9 actors stood up. A couple of seconds, sat down again, watching the woman. Okay. And she's like, but back to the phone. Second buzzer, 9 people stand up. Now the phone goes in a lot. She's looking around at everybody. Everyone sits down again. So this is the third buzzer in a period of 3 minutes. She stood up with everybody else and she sat down with everybody else, which we thought would happen. What happened next was incredible. As we called the patients in, and this was going on, as we called the patients in one by one, she was the only one left in the waiting room. She stood up. And that's how easy people around you can convince you, either right or wrong, to do an act and a pattern that you have no idea you're doing and probably didn't even want to do. But we all want to be liked. So the surroundings around us, including family and close friends, if you got more than 3 people in your inner circle, no. It's 2 kinds of people in this world, guy. The people that love you for who you are and the people that want to be you. Okay. And everyone's fighting for your attention. So more than 3 people, you got to be careful. Watch for the guys around you that don't applaud when you win something. Them guys, they're passive aggressive. I just lost 157 pounds, I think, over 2 years. And one of the guys that was kind of on the fringe of my circle, I went in there and he went, "Hey, Rob, I see you putting weight on." "Oh, I'm just joking, man. He's gone." I don't need that. And I don't want that. Because that will it's just not good. You need love and peace. You need to be lifting people up on a daily basis. Now, do I give a shit what anybody thinks about me? No, come on. Look at my life. You kidding me? We are more people than the average center or doctors. We spend almost $1 million last year going back into community. 25% of our work is pro bono. We always give back. We weren't talking about that. We're talking about pure people around you. Because when we tested wives, so we had like 3 or 4 wives we tested that were living in an alcoholic, violent house. And we were allowed to test them as they come in, So we tested them. We tested 4 or 5 soldiers that we knew coming back from Afghanistan, and the PTS levels were exactly the same, which shocked us. So people are seeing action as opposed to housewives or husband, usually housewives, living in that house. The PTSD was exactly the same.
That's wild how our brain works like that. Moving us forward here, it's a space of, I would typically ask my guests what their greatest single piece of advice is, but over the years, you've had many, and I'm sure you've had brilliant mentors and people that you've looked up to. So I'm going to ask you for 2. What are 2 of the greatest pieces of advice that have stayed with you and been a solid core belief that you've put into action now?
The first one, and the most important one, is when I don't know how old I was, but it was many years ago. And excuse my language, guys, you stop giving a fuck what people think about you. That was one of the most powerful pieces of advice I've ever had. Because if you think about it, in normal day life, we worry about how we look. If we walk into a room and a group starts laughing, we think they're laughing at us. If you close the door and everyone looks around at you, not looking at you, nobody cares about you, okay? So stop caring what people think about you. They've got their own shit going on. They're not all talking about you, And the other piece of advice was put like this to me. Can you imagine living to the age of 80 and looking back in your life to when you were 30 and 40 and realize there was really nobody watching you and you really could have done anything you wanted to do? Which tells us, stop caring, do it now. You ain't got time, guys. Or do it now. Do it now. 3-second rule in my company, my house, my friends, my family is if you get an idea. Like if I'm sat on the couch tonight, I got a big bag of chips. I don't eat. With a big bag of Coke, I don't drink. Well, let's say, for instance, I got my wife, dogs, the cat's moaning around anywhere. I watch the TV and I see Arnold Schwarzenegger. Well, come on. And he's big and he's toned. And I say to my wife, I think I'm going to the gym tomorrow. I ain't going to the gym. She knows it. The cats know it. The dogs know. I ain't going to the gym, but if I get up within 7.3 seconds of that thought pattern hitting the prefrontal cortex, I go and get my shirt and my pants and I put that near the door or in my car in the passenger seat, there's a good chance of me going. So you don't have time. If you're thinking of starting an empire, a business, asking a girl, guy, dad, car, do it now or step forward to doing that now, because you will regret the time you wasted. You will regret when you look back in your life thinking, my God, I could have done that. And I'd have been famous. I'd have been this. I'd have been a husband, whatever. Stop letting people rule your life. What people think about you, nothing to do with you. You've got to live free. Get yourself a partner. You need a partner in your life to build, or family around you, or real close friends to move forward, and go out there and kill it every single day. Be that leader if you're a mom sat at home right now in a 1-bedroom apartment, you've got 3 kids and the husband's left you. That's what we call a turning point. I love that. It's crossroads. It's 2025. Go on the computer, earn $1 million a year. We're not devastated by that shit anymore. And ladies, watch for this one. Nobody else will have you with 2 children. Yeah, what a weak man. Get rid of him. He's not worth even having around. The opportunities for every single person listening to this, because you're not listening to this by mistake, I want to put that one over, is your chance now to pick yourself up, move forward. If you're earning $10 a week, I want you to earn 50. If you earn $1 million a year, I want you to earn $2 million a year. And it can be done. Find your identity, okay? And clear the childhood trauma, because everybody has it. When that happens, our DNA changes and we become very, very powerful people.
Let's take a spin all the way back here for a moment now and do a little bit of reflection. You brought your life from devastation, homelessness, and on the streets to now you have this international, highly successful, mind-blowingly helpful, and I'm going to say saving people's lives practice. How do you feel grateful? Do you live now in a space of gratitude and appreciation for where you've come from to where you are?
So I want to be real with the guys listening right now. I'm so grateful for what I have. I only last night came out my house. I walked to the gates. I turned around, looked at my house. I looked at my yard. I looked at my dogs. I looked at everything around my cars. I looked at everything around me. And I was so grateful. But here's the deal. And everybody will go through this. I always thought wealth would bring me happiness. It doesn't. It really doesn't. There's a hole needs to be filled there. So, it's really important I stay grounded. I remember going to Paramount Studios to film an episode of The Doctors with about 11 million people watching. They fly you over in private jet. You stay in the best hotel. You got the chauffeurs, da-da-da. About second or third occasion I was there, the audience, standing ovation, stuff like that. I came off. I don't know why, but I was all in my head. And I said to my wife, "Where's my chauffeur?" And she looked at me. Then she slapped me across the face. The only time I've ever seen her do that in 12 years of knowing that girl. And she said to me, "If I ever hear that tone again, this marriage is over." When you sprung into the spotlight like me, and have been, I work with movie stars and pop stars now. I only take on 4 patients at any one time. The rest of the staff deal with working class people like me. I have to stay humble. This is what will happen, guys. If you stay in gratitude, or as we call it, sunlight in the spirit, if you stay in gratitude, you'll start recognizing the patterns around you. You'll start believing in the patterns around you. Now, there are good patterns and bad patterns, subconscious brain, conscious brain. So once you start seeing things happening to you, you'll see that pattern and they'll get better and better and better. There's a key to keeping this conscious mind working and not the subconscious during that day. Otherwise, that guy will kill you. So I'm grateful for being on here. I'm grateful for the office, my shoes, my t-shirt, my old 14 iPhone, my shoes from Temu, my top from, I like a couple of things in my life. I like cars and I like watches, and that's it. I have no idea how much I earn. I stay away from that shit, Brian. I have very little idea of how much we charge. Stay away from that stuff. Because I've never watched a video. I've never watched me on TV. I've never listened to a podcast. I've never read my book, because even though it was very healing while we did it, I'm not going to fall into that hype. Oh, let me find, I saw you out the other day on the red carpet with blah, blah, blah. Oh, good. Did you see it? No, I didn't watch it. Why? I'm just making sure. A kid from the projects, council estates in England that had nothing, to where I am today. I do not for 1 second want to believe that I did this. As I'd love to tell you guys I'm this smart and clever, but I'm not. What I did is humanly impossible. I had to have God's help. And that's how it's been. And I tell everybody that as well, that I can't do this on my own. What John taught me, what life patterns have taught me, is how I even came here and all the stuff that fell into place in my life. There's no such thing as coincidences. So stay humble, guys. Keep your feet in the trenches and your head in the clouds. Do everything you want to do. Reach for the stars every single freaking day to better you or your family or whatever it is. I wanted the biggest platform in the world so I could help people. That's all I wanted for. I didn't want to be famous. I didn't want to be writing books and stuff. I didn't want to be, but listen, it's called saving lives on a daily basis. We all should be saving one life. Now, I can almost hear the people screaming back at the computer going, listen, next time you're in a built-up area of people, lots of people around, spot someone coming towards you with sneakers on, and I wanted to say 2 words to him, nice sneakers. He's going to go, oh, thanks, man. Turn around and watch him walk away. He's going to look down at his sneakers at least 2 to 3 times. You've just changed his world, man. But guess what? He goes home to the wife or girlfriend because he's now in a great mood. Now she will follow that learned behavior pattern mirroring part of the brain. Now she's in a good mood. Now the mother-in-law, of course. And the ripple effect of saving one life is absolutely mind-blowing, and everybody can do it. Compliment 3 people every day. Stay astute. Stay tall, confident. Don't take any shit off anybody.
That's some of the greatest advice that so many people needed to hear. This seems like a great place to bring our podcast full circle. And at the end of every one of my conversations, I love to pose a really powerful question. So, Dr. Robb Kelly, the question I pose out to everybody, and I can't wait to hear your answer again, is what is your definition of truly living your best life?
I think I often say I'm living the dream instead of dreaming of living, because that's what I used to do when I was homeless. My best life is having family and friends around you, having known that you're in a financial situation today that you can help everybody I come into contact on a daily basis with. And just, it's the warmth, it's the peace, it's the, it's to be able to do most things that you want to do. And the reason why I get up in the morning is, let's save a life today. All my staff know it, all that 5 officers around the world. Our wife knows it. It's just, how can we save a life, man? How can we inspire someone to do the next right thing or be happy for that day? Because I'm the annoying guy on a packed elevator. How's everyone doing today? Are we doing okay? I'm that annoying guy that ends people. Oh yeah, I'm doing good. Okay, let's make it better today, guys. So by the time they press their floor and come off that floor of the elevator, everyone's in a great mood and ready to go. That's what it is.
Beautifully said. I would love for us to take a moment, and if you could share one final piece or one final word for anybody out there listening, whether you're in recovery, whether you are looking at going into recovery, whether you're in the depths of your struggle. Dr. Robb Kelly, what's a last word to end them off with?
No one communicates anymore just because of the iPhone stuff. I always finish my talk with this when I do conferences. Story. There's a guy walks to the Golden Gate Bridge, throws himself off and commits suicide. When the police pull him out, they find his ID. They go to the apartment looking for next of kin. What they found on the kitchen table was a letter, and it read, I'm going to walk to the Golden Gate Bridge, which was an hour's walk, by the way, guys, and I'm going to throw myself off and commit suicide. Unless on the way there, somebody says good morning, smiles at me, nods at me, any kind of recognition towards me, I will stop right there and I'll turn around and I'll start again tomorrow and see what my life is like. Question. How many people have you walked past today who's heading to the Golden Gate Bridge? You just never know.
Beautiful. Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Robb Kelly. This has been an incredible conversation. For everybody out there that is walking their path, who needs to have those words said to them, I hope that you hear everything that Dr. Robb Kelly has shared with us today. And if you want to learn more, you can find him in so many places. In our show notes, we'll have all his information attached. We will put as much information as we can because there's a lot that you can learn from him. Thank you so much. And this has been an incredible opening to our series on recovery. Thanks for listening. That's a wrap on today's episode. A heartfelt thank you to our guests for showing up with honesty, depth, and wisdom. And thank you for listening in. I hope something in this conversation stirred something in you, a memory, a reminder, or maybe even a return to a part of yourself that's been waiting. If you enjoyed this episode, can I ask a quick 30-second favor? Share it with someone you know, someone who might need to hear this message too. And don't forget to explore past episodes. There's so much more waiting for you there. Until next time, I'm your host, Brian White, and this is The Return Project.